So you got the music queued up?
Got it.
All right. Okay, let's play. You know which one, right? Don't choose the other one because if you choose the other one, that's the wrong one. We got to choose the right one for this one. You know what I'm talking about, right? That's the one.
Well, Rob has already said hello for the Q&A show for September on the Photofocus podcast, leading us off ahead of the music. Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Hey, doing all right there. How are you, Pep?
Doing well. Out shooting all day, and here we are doing what you and I do, recording at night. And this is sans any alcohol, though, because I got too much to do.
Good job. Good job. I'm trying to do this cleanse thing, so I'm drinking a dark beer. Ew. Not a yeah, no.
Anyways, dark beer is for a cleanse. That's a healthy beer is a dark beer,
isn't it? Like they say, Guinness is good for you, isn't it?
I in moderation.
Right? Okay.
If there's a beer cleanse, I want to know, man.
Well, I've been talking to my friends about this
Q&A show. What's the beer cleanse?
Right. No, well, I've been talking to my friends about this, and I said, you know what a brilliant business model would be? Protein beer.
Because think it's all carbs now.
Well, you go into a workout, you get pumped up, and then afterwards you go to the pub and you have a pint or two, and it's a protein beer.
Oh my gosh. Or you could be like the athletes that instead of drinking water, they drink bone broth. And that's supposed to be I don't know. I tried some of that. That's actually pretty good, but yeah, I don't know how you can live off that.
I know.
Well, hey, this is great. We're a couple of busy people taking a break to record some questions and some answers. So let's do that.
Yes.
In fact, I'll just start with one. If we want to do any tangents or side notes, we'll just do it along the way. So, in fact, I want to start with this one because we have a sponsor. It's Photomatics. They make HDR software, high dynamic range software and we have a question about it. So I'm just going to kind of integrate it into talking about Photomatics because.
So if we answer this question, is that like our sponsorship pitch? Which Photomatics is amazing. You should get it.
Yeah. Well, it's no secret that you're a huge power user of it. So am I. And that's why I was a power user of it so long ago that they got me involved. I've been helping that company for a long time. And so I'm a insider, for lack of a better word. And Jim asks, well, this is a kind of a funny way of asking, but I'll ask it how you
okay, yeah.
Can you guys meaning the company HDR Soft? No, HDR Soft, like the developers. Can you guys make another preset? And okay, since we're Photomatics nerds, can you guys make another preset that's basically like Interior 2 with less reds and oranges?
Oh, which would be very helpful if you're doing anything with mixed lighting.
Right. So what's going on if you're not a Photomatics or HDR person, then you take bracketed photos, and so Rob and I, we use it a lot for interiors where there's a bright window and there's a dark interior. And you take bracketed shots, different shutter speeds, put them together. Well, it sounds fabulous, and it actually is. It's a workhorse of a tool, but it doesn't come without challenges like the colors. You get the mixed colors in there, or you get either the sun and some man-made light that are kind of fighting each other for dominance in the scene. So you end up having to fix the color, or there's just a whole bunch of color casts. Like recently I had one that had just so much beautiful green forest outside the house that it hit the white walls, and the walls are just green. So there's nothing you can really do to make it not be there when you're shooting. So you have to manage it. And so he's apparently found a way. He likes to have less oranges and reds in it. And so the quick answer to that is, yeah, Jim, you can. All you do is save your own preset. It's like
there's because on the left-hand side, there's like the sliders that you can adjust and play with and all of that. And I believe there was the yellow and orange or red there. Wasn't
there's a color settings section where you can manage each color separately. Yeah.
Right.
So and then once you do that, you go to the bottom of that, below all the sliders, there's a little pop-up menu, and you can save the preset, and it can be there for you anytime you want. So for anybody out there that's like, hey, these presets aren't working for me. My opinion is the presets aren't really supposed to work by themselves. To me, it's you get close, or you find out what it can do, and then you tweak it from there. So
exactly.
So yeah. Besides that, anything else about HDR and
Well, you know what the nice thing about the Photomatics is and making all those presets is that if you get a good set of presets, you can actually start selling presets just like you would
yeah,
sell presets on Lightroom or Photoshop and stuff like that. And I've even got a preset that I've been using for years that I've now included in my online course teaching how to do real estate photography using Photomatics. And I actually supply the exact preset that I use for my company in that. So the presets are
nice.
great for that. Absolutely.
You know, I've been asked to make presets to like to contribute to articles and stuff like that, and I
Hmm.
think I did at some point. But I always just feel like those settings are so unique to each person, not
And
only
each
because
place.
right. Well, but even before you get to the individual place, you still have individual taste.
Hmm.
Everyone's cameras are different. Like they manage color
Yes.
differently.
Oh,
And so,
differences between Canon and Nikon and Sony.
yeah.
Amazing.
And then what
Mm.
about how you convert the raw, or do you not
Or do
maybe?
you play with RAW? And
Right.
yeah,
And
like
then there's also, well, we're going to go into the weeds. We probably don't want to do that. But
no, no.
if
Okay,
anybody has
sponsorship
questions
time
about
is
it,
over.
questions at photofocus.com. And well, if it's about this, if you want to know about presets and stuff, support at hdrsoft.com too.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So I just thought that would be a great way to integrate uh, sponsorship
It's
and
an
question, because
excellent way to plug that. So,
and
um,
anybody, if you do your questions at photofocus.com, uh, you can go into the weeds about HDR, and Rob and I can help you out there.
oh, definitely.
All right.
Uh,
Next question. Which one are we doing next here?
okay, this one is
Oh, I know.
actually one of the
Headliner. Yep.
ones. Yep, I got this from one of my fans and said, "Hey, the new iPhone is out. What do you think?" And I thought, ah, I'm really disappointed. I'm serious. Have you seen this thing? Okay, so for anyone
Barely.
who's listening to
Barely.
this on the day of the
I
release
was
of this
busy today.
podcast,
This is the day when the announcement went out, and I was busy.
yeah, so we're recording this on September 12th, which is the Tuesday where the announcement came out, and this podcast is coming out on Thursday, the 14th, which is one day before the 15th, which is the official day where you can pre-order these phones. Now, all right. So what has changed? Okay. It comes in a titanium body. Yay. It comes with a USB-C plug. So now I have to replace all my plugs. Anyways,
Well,
well,
that I got to give them props. I think they got a
well,
lot of pressure about doing
well,
this because
like the
we all have,
EU.
yes, but also all of us normal people. I'm the last one to want. I don't want any legislation telling them what to do, but they need to listen to us too, because now their products, no, some of their products
Hmm.
are the only ones I need Lightning for. I need it for my phone and my AirPods.
Well,
Other
and
than
the
that, my iPad has USB C,
yeah, your
and
computer's a USB-C,
computers all USB C. So
right?
why? Yeah, it is, and it's not just them. You know, for years now, we've had all these different, uh, not only mini USB and micro USB and regular USB,
Hmm.
not only those, but a lot of my cameras. The Olympus has a
Oh
different
yeah,
USB shape. My old, like those pocket point and shoot type Nikons
yeah.
had all different. It's
Remember when
getting,
they had like the mini, the micro, and you couldn't really, you didn't know which USB was
but
which USB?
then I've got a pair of headphones here that has the most. Oh, they have an excuse. They're waterproof, so they have a separate kind of thing. Okay, but anyway, all the different devices, so many different devices had these different shapes things, and I think Apple needs to be. They are the big company. They need
Hmm.
to. We're carrying so many stupid things, so I give them props on that. And I'm sorry, I don't need to make a tangent about
Yeah,
that, but I know
no,
that
I agree.
there were some politicians in Europe. Yeah, I heard about that too. They were going to they're going to force it, I think, or maybe they did,
Yeah,
which is horrible. But in the end,
it's yes, it works. However, aside from those two things, the titanium body, which I don't
titanium.
really care about,
And they got a
the
processor
US
that's evolutionary, not revolutionary, right? The processor is a new one.
exactly, it's
Okay.
one step faster. It's like when the M2 came out, it's like, ooh, now we're like 20% faster than the M1. Well, the M1 was a big step.
Yeah.
M2, 20% faster than the M1. Who cares? The thing with this though is that if you look at, I was really hoping that there'd be a significant uh, upgrade to the camera system. And the reason I say that is because it used to be like, you came out with the 11, and the 11 had, what was it? Night, oh, what was it? Night something, where it could take really good night photos
Oh,
by keeping the shutter open. Do you
yeah.
remember what that was called?
I don't remember the name
Um,
of it, but I know I have a hard time turning it on and off when I want it. Don't want it when I don't want it when I want to control it.
right? Okay, so that part there, they have they had that on one camera, or one, because they had two cameras, right? They had a wide angle, and then they had a regular telephoto. And
11,
it was only on one of the cameras. And
three,
then,
three lenses.
was that the 11? No,
Yeah.
that's not
This,
11.
this is an 11. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That looks like a 12.
This is a 14.
Yeah. No, that's, I don't know. But the 11 had that, and and when they went to the 12, all of a sudden that night thing got put onto all three lenses rather than just the one lens. So it was a major change. However, this time, if you look at the camera specs between the 14 and this one, the only thing that changed was now they have a 5 times optical zoom versus a 3 times optical zoom. That is literally all that changed.
Are we talking about 15 Pro? Because I'm looking at just the Apple website here,
Yeah,
and it
15
says
Pro Max,
15. It says 15
15 Pro
has
Max versus the 14 Pro Max. The
Pro
only
Max.
difference is from 3 times optical zoom to 5 times optical zoom. That's it. And so this was the most disappointing one that I've seen.
Well, it
Like
was
there's
sold to us. Oh, by the way, on the Apple website, they have the logo that's very cool, animated. It's very it looks like the beginning of Foundation, the series Foundation.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
They have
yeah.
all this they have all this futuristic paintings happening in this show, and that's what it looks like to me. So maybe they plagiarized, I don't know.
But yeah, they haven't done anything different when
Hmm.
it comes to the video recording. So here I was hoping that they would have like 4K 120, but they don't. It's still up to 60 frames per second. With the 1080, it's still up to 60 frames per second, not up to 120. It's just, there's nothing that has changed significantly enough that it makes it a worthwhile upgrade, other than, yeah, the USB-C port. I'm
Well,
so
this
disappointed.
I have a silver line. Obvious silver lining for this one is thank God I don't need to feel like I need to go buy it because I'm trying
Yeah.
to not be spendy now. It's like things are a little tight for a while, so
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, but I mean, I got the 14, and I got the 14 for actual photography
Work.
work because we're
Yeah.
doing videos and stuff
Yeah.
on.
Like I would have loved to seen. Okay, so last year they came out with the 14, and they had a 48 megapixel main camera, but the ultra wide and telephoto were still 12 megapixels.
Hmm,
I was hoping that when the 15 came out, that all of them would be 48 megapixels, right?
yeah, well, it doesn't. If you take a wide angle shot, does it do the darn it, what's the word for the computational photography so that you end up
Yeah,
getting a wide angle 40 whatever
you
megapixel, or is
think.
it only?
No, it's still just the same. And
Well,
so,
personally, I'm glad that there's not that much concern anymore about how many megapixels everybody has. That was such a big thing for when I was doing podcasts like 10 years ago or whatever.
mhm.
Everybody's worried, oh, 12 megapixel, 20 meg, and it was a big, all this talk. Now all the cameras have so many megapixels, it really doesn't,
Well,
it doesn't matter.
after 24, it's
Yeah.
really redundant. But
Yeah.
going from 12 to like getting an image off of my iPhone that is at least 24 megapixels would be amazing, because that means that if I actually did want to just take one camera on a vacation, I could just go with an iPhone.
Yeah.
right?
I love, we should stop talking about iPhones because everybody does, but I do love being able, I took a trip, uh, took my kid to college and I didn't pack a camera, just the iPhone. And I didn't miss it. I felt so light and I had such flexibility to jump in an Uber to come, didn't have to check bags because I had to take his, so I didn't have to pack anything
Yeah.
instead of having this big bag. So I got to tell you, like, I hate to be the one piling on Apple, but hey, the cameras in the Samsungs that I've used and tried and all that are amazing too. So let's just say smartphones, but man, I agree with you. Is not carrying a big bag, like just like when I got a mirrorless setup some years ago, and then the bag was about a third of the size of the DSLR
Yeah.
bag, and now it's just the phone. Oh my God, it's so good. All you
I
got
know
to do
where
is remember to bring an extra charger.
yeah, and your neck doesn't hurt when you were carrying the
Yeah,
mirrorless versus the SLR, right?
and it's just always there. Oh man, it's good.
Yeah.
Hey,
No,
let's move on
exactly.
because, like I say, everybody's talking about the phones. That's every
Yeah.
podcast, every.
Oh, exactly.
um,
Yeah. We're not a product review site, but yeah, I was so disappointed about that. Next. All right.
so the next
What?
one. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I will. Next one
Introduce this question.
is Reynaldo. I wonder if it's the Reynaldo I know. I can't remember his last name, but see him on social media, and I think at some some of the conferences in the past. I don't know if it's him though. Okay, it says, how do I know how many shots I need for time lapse, and how far apart should they be? I'm thinking of doing a full day time lapse.
Ooh, all right. Okay. Have you
So
done time lapses?
do you want me to give you the short answer first because you know more?
Sure.
uh, Someone that should be a sponsor. Can you guess someone that should be a sponsor in the future? Because we always
Who's
talk
that?
about them. Photo pills.
Oh yeah, no doubt, right?
They have a pill.
Absolutely.
One of the pills is a time lapse pill, and you
Yeah.
can go in there and say, how much time do I want the final result to be? How much time is that in reality? How much time am I
Hmm.
covering? So he can put in his 24 hours, and then what's the other one? How many frames per second?
Yep.
How
So
many? Yeah. So
exactly. So
that's my answer because I'm not a big. I've done time
well,
lapses. And
but that's
speaking of,
that's
well,
exactly it.
yeah.
It's just math. Okay. So sorry, I cut you off.
Well,
My
there are a couple of the finer points that because it does become a video. They're photographs, but they're put
Mhm.
into it, the end results of video. So you do have to consider things like frame rate and stuff that I'm not that well versed in. I
Mhm.
just kind of go by what people recommend. But uh, the the math of it, thank God, is in apps and stuff now.
Yeah.
So that's what I
But
highly recommend. Yeah. And for
oh,
more finer
exactly.
points, we want to hear Rob.
Essentially, you do have to understand the math, and once you understand the math, it all just makes sense. It's 24 frames per second. Okay, you can do 30 frames per second, you can do 60, you can do 120. I recommend doing 24 frames per second and letting things transition a little bit smoother in between and making it have a flow to it. Have you ever watched uh have you ever watched an action movie on one of those like super high definition, high frame rate TVs like that does a 120 megahertz screens where it's like hyper realistic?
I
It
think so.
lose
Yeah.
Yeah, it loses the magic
Yeah.
of the film.
And
So
right. The 24 frame rate is the magical film frame rate, right?
it is. It is. And so I like to use 24 frames per second. So if you have a time lapse and you want it to last, say, 10 seconds, that's 240 frames. So
Bingo.
240 frames that you need to be able to put in to whatever time you're doing. So if you're doing 24 hours, 240 frames, it's 10 frames per hour. That's one every 6 minutes.
Okay.
240 frames, 24 hours,
But
10 per hour.
the frames per second is the result, not how many you capture.
You can capture, yes. Well, no, because if you capture one frame every 6 minutes, every hour, you will have 10 frames, right? And after 24 hours, you will have, oh, wait a sec, 24 frames per second if you want it to be 10 seconds long. Yeah, no, that's right. 24 frames per second, 10 seconds long, is 240 frames. That means you have 240 pictures that you need to be able to put in there. So over 24 hours, that's 10 frames per hour, one every 6 minutes.
Okay, like most people listening, I freely admit that I have to write this down and look at it to get it clear in my head. But there's the other question that people ask themselves, and my understanding, people say you just do it by experience to know, is the distance between the frames is what you're saying is to get the result you want at that many frames per second. That's how many frames you take. But the distance between the frames also affects the look and feel of the whole thing and the way that things move around. So depending what your subject matter is in there, you might want more, you want your frame spacing to be different to have a different effect.
But then
So
that'll affect your total outcome because you'll
is
have
that
more
right?
frames that you'll have to put in. Well,
Because you have to change your frame rate if you take more frames or less frames.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you want all the frames in there, or you're just going to skip the frames. So if you're going to skip the frames, you might as well not take them in the first place,
So,
unless
so it is simple. You're saying like there's a clear equation.
there
But
is.
but you can make it different, but that does involve changing the frame rate.
Yeah.
Is
And
that right?
so
Okay.
it all depends on what is the length of so if you wanted to do a time lapse of, say, the decomposition of a plant, or the decomposition of there was a time lapse of the decomposition of an animal, and the decomposition took 6 months, but they took that and made it into like a 5 second time lapse.
Yeah.
So for 5 seconds, 24 frames per second over 6 months, they only had to take a shot like, you know, a couple a day to get that whole,
Right.
or one a day or something like that, to get that whole time lapse to go. And
Okay.
it's pretty cool when you think about it that way. And
But for time lapse, you know how when things are moving around there, you kind of have that jerky motion because things will be moving around and they might stop. Maybe
mhm.
if there's people, they might stop and talk, and then there's lots of movement, and then they stop another way. So it has that weird feel to it. But
Yeah,
so
the shorter the time lapse is, so like if you're doing 24 hours in 10 seconds, then it's going to be very choppy, because one thing in one frame is not going to be there in the next frame because it's already been 10
yeah,
minutes in between,
yeah,
right? Or
yeah,
6 minutes in between. If you're doing something like a 2 minute video and it's going from sunrise to sunset, then you can start seeing, like, uh, for example, like when they do construction time lapses, right? And you can see
yeah.
the crane moving across the construction site. You can see the trucks coming in and slowly unloading and loading the stuff. You can see all that, but you also got to see what the time frame is, right? You're taking 2 minutes to go from sunrise to sunset. Yes, you can see the detail and the motion of the things that are going on in that, because you've taken the time to get all those frames and you've taken the time to be able to see all of that stuff. um
Hmm.
yeah, but
It's one of those things where I hope I'm sharing this with other people, that there's just a little bit of that cloudy confusion in my head trying to get it all straight. But I do know because I've used those calculators and I've done this before,
Mhm.
but I just had to go by that calculation. And then I think the best advice, as usual, is do it a lot.
Yeah.
Go and get the experience, see what works, see what doesn't work.
Hmm.
And one other thing I was going to ask you, uh, because this question was on the docket, is framing a time lapse.
Oh.
If you get if you want to do like a sunset over a building,
Hmm.
architectural or real estate
Yeah,
or whatever, that's like a 3 hour time lapse, something like that. If you start
something like that.
from
Yeah.
afternoon down all the way till the sun, after the sun's down for a little bit.
Yeah.
So framing that, you would want to find the interesting corner of the building or however your subject matter is, and get the sun in it, And then, so do you need to then adjust the camera over the time, or do you just let it get darker and darker and darker?
It sounds like something that you're, I thought you were going to plug photo pills again because they have a where's the sun going to be in this shot.
That's part of Photopill. No,
Right.
actually, I get asked this, and I don't really have good answers because people want to do HDR time lapse.
Hmm.
So they're getting into these weeds with having multiple bracketed sets, and then you kind of
Okay.
manage it's like, should I manage the camera? Should I uh, leave it set? And I always have the same thing about depends on what you want to do, you know?
Okay. So, having done these daytime to twilight to let's see the stars time lapse before, it is excruciatingly painful.
In the
Okay.
detail.
Yes, because the ideal would be that you could just put it on something like aperture priority.
No, no, no. Then you get all kinds of
Right.
different results all the time.
Exactly, because as soon as the clouds start coming in,
Uh-huh.
that'll affect it. If somebody's in front, that'll affect it. And
Where
you
where
get
the sun in the frame is as it moves, it's going to affect it.
exactly if the sun
Mhm.
hits it and it flares a bit, it's going to affect it. So you can't reliably use a something priority, right? You can't do ISO, even ISO. It doesn't work. Now, because of that, you then also have to calculate where your beginning and end is for your exposures. So, for example, if you go out and you take the first daytime shot, you actually when I did it, I had to do it twice. I went out in the daytime, shot, went in roughly just like that time when the sun just hits the horizon
Mhm.
and it's still bright. Take a shot there, meter for that, then meter for when the sun's gone down, but it's still blue out, meter for that, meter it again when it's completely black, so you get the stars. Once you have all that, then you can create a graph saying, okay, so what was the change in my shutter speed from all of this? You then make a graph on it and say, okay, so during the day for these hours, it went from 1/100th of a second to when here it went to 1/50th of a second. So I have to gradually change my shutter speed
So you have to
through
be
the
there
time
by the
lapse.
you have to be there by the camera. Not only do you have to defend the camera against the critters that come, the raccoons and stuff that come around, but you have to actually adjust the camera on a
Hmm.
schedule. Yeah. I'm
Or
not, yeah, that's
you can get an external controller that can control all the
programmable.
settings,
Yeah.
yeah, on
Yeah.
your camera, and you program it to make all those changes for you.
Yeah. That's for the person that does that in a serious way for serious jobs and all that. Then they
Hmm.
really, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, time lapse is a fun conversation. And whenever I don't know why I kind of got into it for a while and then it's been years and I stopped. And oh, by the
Yeah.
way, iPhone has a built-in time lapse system.
It does. It's just
And
that the battery won't last for 24 hours to do it.
yeah, but they have a whole thing like I saw someone on YouTube is talking about how it has some creative way like you just set it going
Yeah.
and then depending how long you let it go, it starts eliminating frames and doing a different frame interval. It
Hmm.
changes. It doesn't change the interval, but it just starts eliminating ones that the result is that the intervals are longer because it eliminated the ones in between.
Yeah.
And it's just some creative way of doing this. So I'm going to try that out one of these days
Yeah.
because as we just established, I always have it.
Yep. And then there are other ones, other programs out there. I like one called Time Lapser, I think it was called. And what it does is, so for example, if you are doing this on a sunny day and you get the clouds coming in and out, you will get this flickering happening
Yeah.
because it goes bright, dark, bright, dark, bright, dark. And what Time Lapser does is it scans one frame adjacent to the next frame and adjusts your raw file so that it's brighter or darker to decrease that flickering. and it makes it so that it's a lot smoother. So it's
This
not.
is a camera app or a
This is
desktop app.
this is a desktop app,
Okay. Yeah, there are
and
like anti-flicker ones I've run across before. Yeah.
yeah, and that was really cool because the one of the projects I did had that problem where we had clouds coming in all day, and the whole goal was to see like the big sky, rolling clouds kind of thing. But with rolling clouds, that's when you get
Yeah.
the flickering happening. And so
Wow.
it was good that program was there to help with that. So yeah, very interesting to do time lapse stuff. And the last thing that I can recommend to make it even more fun is there are mechanical rotation devices, which if you plug it all in and set it all up, it will slowly move your camera like a half a degree per shot so that it's a motion time lapse. So it's like panning from left to right as the time lapse is happening, and that's a really cool effect. So
Yeah, people put them on sliders like a rail,
yeah,
and then you do time lapse, and then the camera moves just it could just move an inch every hour or whatever, or it could whatever you want again, and then so you get that
hmm
dynamic motion. And
yeah,
yeah. So as I like to say on these shows, if you ask us questions like you want to get in the weeds about time lapse, I know I have to look in I'd have to do some searches, but I know I've met time lapse oriented people. We could get them on here to do a quick fire questions or something.
oh yeah, no, I think that'd be fantastic. Okay,
What's next?
next
Moving
question.
on.
All right, here's a good one. Why is there a limit on image sizes on AI generated images? Why can't I get a 12 megapixel image generated by AI?
Who's asking that?
Hmm, interesting, isn't it? Now, before
Have
we
have
get
you
into
seen that?
this,
Sorry, have you seen
yeah,
that
yeah.
Saturday Night Live sketches where the two guys are covering a ridiculous sport and they don't know what they're doing and they talk about the sport and the guy says, and one guy will be like, it's like Jason Sudeikis and I forget the other guy's name. He says, so Rob, why do you suppose he's doing that with this thing? And the response is, yeah, I don't know. That's the way I feel with AI generated images. I don't know. I mean,
Right?
I can guess that they're limiting it for because it takes a lot to do all this generative work. So
hmm
they're limiting the size. I think relieves a lot of the power needs and the data needs. Or are they limiting it because they don't want people going out and using it for high res things? I don't know. What's your thought?
I think we need to talk to an expert about this. And
You got somebody?
I'm trying to. I'm
Sweet.
trying so hard right now to get this special guest on. And hopefully, our next episode that comes out, we will have this special guest who is a pro at AI generated images because she is a founder of one of the AI generated companies. And so, fingers crossed, we have her on and we can ask her the question.
All right. Get your AI questions in, people.
Right? Yes. So if
And
you have
we
questions about
will,
AI, yeah, send
yeah.
them. Send them now.
Okay. Well, what else can you tell about this? Well, let's make sure she's going to be a guest and then we can.
Oh yeah, but one day I'm gonna try and nail her down to a date and just
Okay.
force her to be here and answer our questions because we are just itching at the skins of our bones to have these questions answered. I don't know.
Itching at the skins of our bones?
Isn't that a saying? No,
Is
I
that
don't
a
know.
Canadian saying or what is that?
Oh, I don't
We're
know.
chomping at the bit, I think you're trying to say.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. Okay. Englishing is hard, okay? So All
Do you
right.
have any actual answers for that question though? Or did you
No,
just throw it in there
no,
to
the
get a tease? It's a
no,
teaser.
the main reason for it is simply due to computational power.
Okay.
Is
Yeah, I was right.
I think, but why? Huh.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Ron was right.
Ah,
You stepped on your own.
you kept
With
that,
another
eh? Ah. Oh.
I also kept this one.
Ron Pepper is a thief. He's a thief and he's been stealing my material.
You have been, haven't you?
That's a friendly rivalry with not even a rivalry, like another podcaster that if you're a football fan, the Seahawkers podcast is awesome, even though he calls me that.
That's okay.
Ron Pepper is a thief.
All right, so it's late, people, for us. Okay, so yeah, the AI thing. I mean, yes, it's going to be the conversation. People can stop talking about phones all the time and start talking about AI.
Oh,
all right, so
wow. You know what? Okay, just going back to AI, it was funny. Okay, in our last episode, we were talking to Wayne from Spain, and he was talking about how he used generative AI to put people into architectural stuff. Okay, so I tried it. I made a video about it as well for YouTube, and it's so cool. Like, I did it for the exterior of a building, and the exterior of a building, place people here, place people there, place people sitting on the steps, and it worked. And what I found was really cool was three things. Number one, when I said place people on the stairs, imagine the size of a building, the picture itself. Imagine scaling the people. How, like, the thought that goes into this, like, the AI had to examine the image, look at the stairs, think about how far apart the stairs are to be able to put the people on it properly, and then scale the people so that they're scaled properly for not only the building, but the stairs. Yeah. So the people, and when I had people walking, they were scaled properly to the size of the building, the sidewalk. Now, here's a cool part. I said, add blurry cars, and I put the thing there.
Nice.
You know what it did? This is the part that blew me away. It had the cars following in the right lanes, like they were in the lanes of the road, going the right direction.
Wow. Okay.
Think about all the things that the computer has to be able to analyze and understand. It has to be able to understand where the lines are, what a road is, what the direction is. Like, yes, if the yellow line is on the right side, right? Unless you're in Europe and then it's on the other side. But it has to understand all of that, scale it, put it in the right lanes. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's not all of Europe. I think it's just UK or England. But in fact, could you say put cars on the road as if they're in England, so they're on the left side or something?
Right.
So what do you think? Do you think it's someone was telling me that those CAPTCHAs that we're always choosing which ones have a bicycle or which things have a sidewalk, that we've been training these AIs this whole time? That's what somebody was.
Ooh, that's a neat one.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but because it is insane. Like there was the one you actually recommended, this virtual staging service that does a really good job. I mean, you pay a little bit for it, but it's worth it. And you put in mostly furniture or whatever you want for your virtual stage, your empty room, and you put in whatever you want to put in there. And there's a whole catalog. And that's fine. That's just 3D. We've been doing it. That's not new. But what it does do is renders it. It takes a few minutes to render it, and it sees where the light's coming from, and it adds shadows, and it gradients the light across, let's just say the couch, for instance. So it's all very realistic looking, and I'm super impressed with it. Yeah. And it's just because it looks and figures out. Now, this is less complicated than just saying add people. And then it has to figure out all those things that you're talking about. Like it has to figure out the scale and know what you're talking about. Like, what if you could end up with a giant and leaning against the building? And so this will be fun to have some AI Q&A, because the way that's happening is impressive. I don't feel like it's getting past people. Everyone's talking about AI. They're talking about the only reason the stock market looks good is that tech stocks are doing well. And out of those, it's really just because of AI. Very oversimplifying it. Actually, the stock market looks higher because the dollar value is lower, but that's a whole other thing. So, but anyway, the AI is really holding up this. And so is there going to be a bubble? You know, is it going to be the next thing that there's only a couple of companies offering it? I don't think it's not going to be like when there was the internet bubble and we're left with good companies, Amazon, Google. Well, good or bad is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying? These groups of companies and all the other ones just washed away.
Yeah.
I feel like AI is going to make it possible for tons and tons of small solutions, like virtual staging is a niche.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to, like what we're doing, like adding people into an architectural scene, that's a niche, but I think it's going to make it possible for tons and tons of niches.
Oh, definitely. There's going to be so many different applications for it. It's
that we all haven't thought about.
It's amazing and frightening at the same time. I love it. Yeah.
All right. We'll have an AI show coming up. We hope.
We hope. Working hard on that one. Okay.
What's the next one we've got here?
Oh, by the way, if anyone wants to try the virtual staging that Ron's talking about, it's called Aptly Design. We're going to put in the notes the link to their site. Use the link. I'm also going to put in my promo code in there for you, and that'll get you, I believe, 25% off. So I will get you all of that to put in the notes.
Okay.
Or that'll be in the notes. That will be in the notes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've tried it. I used it a couple times and it was very worthwhile and it was easy. It was easy.
Okay. Next question. Who is this from?
Let's see here. Shutter count?
Yes.
Didn't you add that in?
Did I add that in?
We didn't get a name with it. I'll check while you read it.
Okay. It says, does shutter count matter on mirrorless cameras? I'm thinking of buying a used camera, and I know that on a DSLR, you would ask for the shutter count. But what about mirrorless?
Okay, wait. I was thinking of buying a used camera, and I know that. Oh, good question. Oh, this is right? We've had this person asking before, you know, because I remember.
Did we?
It's not real. Stan from Colorado. That's a South Park reference. I think it's somebody. I think it's somebody that just uses it. But hey, it could be Stan. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question though. Like, it's true. Like,
yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Sorry. Like with mirrored cameras, like a regular DSLR, you think 250,000 shutter actuations is pretty much the lifespan of a camera. That's about fair. So if you know what the shutter actuation is, then you know how long it's been used and what the lifespan is of the shutter or the sensor or all that stuff. But on mirrorless, the problem is you can have a mirrorless camera that has a shutter count of 1. But say it was being used for, 10,000 hours of videoing. Then all of a sudden that sensor may actually be close to the end of its lifespan. So you never know. So yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if there is an alternative, like the sensor hours, like, like on a tractor, like you don't measure a tractor or any farm equipment based on the number of miles that's put onto it like you would a car. But you look at how many hours has it been in operation.
Just like you don't look at an electric car in the same way for wear and tear as a gasoline engine car.
Right.
It has a whole different. So, hey, Stan, good job. Let's see. We've had mirrorless around long enough now that we should be seeing. I'm surprised photographers aren't saying, okay, well, this one has died. I need to move on because my, whatever you said, sensor hours, we can measure it like a boat, like engine hours,
yeah.
Because it's true. There has to be, like with video, the heating up of the sensor. I know at first you weren't supposed to run your video for more than just a minute or two. I can't remember. They've solved that, or at least gotten better. But yeah, that's wear and tear on that sensor. And the sensor's on more just for photographing too, because you use the screen a lot more. Now with DSLRs, you can do live view too, but I hardly ever do. I almost always look to the old fashioned, good old viewfinder still. I just like that better. But with mirrorless, that sensor's on the whole time for that purpose. So that's a good question, man.
and it's recording all the time. And
Yeah.
I don't know how the sensor, what are they called? Like the photo nodes or the actual,
Pixels, the pixels,
yeah,
the
the actual sensors, right?
I mean,
Like,
pixels burn out. You can get dead pixels on cameras for long. That's a thing. I
right?
think it must be less
And
because I don't really hear about it.
but on these new ones, who knows? Like, how long are they
Yeah.
supposed to last? I don't know.
I've never heard of photographers like taking in their mirrorless camera just to change out the sensor. Like that, it seems like that would be uh, reasonable, doesn't it?
Right? So, I think the question is, if you are thinking about buying a used mirrorless camera and you want to know how much wear and tear has been on it, you know what? I think you're right. You should asking for a shutter count may be a pointless endeavor. Maybe asking what did you use the camera for is a
Yeah.
better endeavor. Or, like, well, did you use it as a hammer? Well, then don't buy it. But the same, if it's like, oh yeah, no, I shot a couple of my kids' birthday parties with it, and I found out that my iPhone took better photos. Then yeah, that the person didn't actually use the camera very much, so it's probably a safe bet. But if they said something like, oh, I don't know, I went to Australia and I went through the deserts with it. It's like, well, I'd be more concerned about the dust and the internal
Yeah.
stuff like that, more
Maybe
than
they're like
the
me.
censoring.
I got a Olympus, the first OMD Mark Zero, like 2010 or whatever they came out,
Hmm.
and it hasn't gotten used that much. I just I was using it for personal travel stuff,
Yep.
but not real heavily. And then it's been sitting in the shelf for a few years now. I just pull it out for some random things because it has lots of cool, well, time lapse and different kinds of those live, what do you call it when you can leave it open and do a long exposure of like 2 minutes and watch it grow and watch the light come in and then stop it when you want it. So it has all these cool things, but it doesn't use that much. So maybe look for someone like me. Hey, I've got an
Hmm.
Olympus setup. I'll sell you.
Right.
But
Hey, I've got a Fuji 50R that I'm trying to
yeah,
get off my shelf too. It's
I got up the Olympus and played with the time lapse thing when I saw the question coming in. So
hmm,
that's kind of what it's for. It's for me to be able to talk about mirrorless cameras. That's about it.
all right. Exactly. So, I
Good
guess
question.
that's our response for that on how, what would I ask a person if I'm buying a mirrorless camera? What did you use it for? How long have you had it? And is, obviously if you're buying a camera off of someone that is advertising themselves as a cinematographer, probably not a good idea.
That's going to have a heavy use. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, don't ever,
Maybe look at their work, see if they have a website full of work and ask them if they use that camera. How about that?
right. Like, if you ever see anything of mine on uh for sale, I wouldn't recommend buying it, just because if it's coming from me, it's gone through the ringer with through my staff and everything. So, uh, my gear is not the best gear to buy, and the reason it's cheap on Facebook
Yeah.
Marketplace is because it's been through the ringer. So,
I end up with some very lightly used gear. I've got a D700, which is back when there was less megapixels, and it's the most amazing low light performance camera you'll ever see. And I still have it around. It's a backup.
mhm.
I use it for certain things. I don't really worry about it, so I'll take it if I'm, if there's a chance of getting trouble, stolen or lost or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
hey, good questions this time, everybody. Keep them coming. Questions at photofocus.com. And if you have AI questions, we covered that. And if you have time lapse questions, whatever questions you want, we'll try to get some other people in.
Yes, and definitely send your AI questions, because if we have the questions, we can definitely bring them up if I can get this guest on. I'm hoping so. And as well, if you can, please record a voice question, like a voice
Yes.
memo question. Put your question into a voice memo and send that to us, because that makes it a lot more fun rather than Ron and I speaking. So
Remember when we had some voice questions came in early on? Where are all those
those?
people? Me too.
I miss
Please
those.
open up your voice memo app in your smartphone, record a message. Don't be nervous. Like if you mess it up, just delete it and try it again.
Mhm.
I was just having this discussion with somebody when YouTube was kind of newer, at least for me, some years ago, and we wanted to do tutorials. I wasn't going to edit the thing, so I would practice it, usually the whole thing, and then I would just do it in one take. So just write a few notes and ask a question. If you mess it up, do it again, because it's fun. It's makes it a little more dynamic. You get Pepper and Morodo, and then you get some other voices in there. So it's easy to do, and you're pretty sure to get the question on if you do it, because there aren't that many people doing it. All right. Well, let's. I've already cued the music. Let's wrap it up for this September Q&A on the Photofocus podcast.
Yes.
Parting
Thank
comments. Where to find you?
Nope.
You have a course, don't you?
I do. I'm Rob Morodo. You can find me at robmorodo.com. That's Rob, R-O-B, Morodo, M-O-R-O-T-O.com. I've got an online real estate photography course, and I've got a back to school special on right now until September 15th, but I'm thinking about extending that to the end of the month. So if you want to get into real estate photography, you got to get in now. 30% off. You'll love it.
Awesome. And after having taken that course, and I watched it when you were making it, as you know, and I've implemented some things. It's made me a better photographer. I've added some of the techniques and stuff. So I mean, Rob's he's no slouch. He's got it. As for me, I'm not really promoting anything, but if you know people in the Bay Area that might need a photographer, ronpepper.com. And I'd like to thank Photomatics for sponsoring hdrsoft.com. It's free to download and try. And with that, let's say go out shooting.
Have
It's
fun.
September. I don't know what you're going to shoot, but
Yeah.
give them some ideas, Rob. Tell them what to shoot.
Exactly. Go shoot kids. Go shoot dogs. Go shoot birds. Go shoot. We're going to get flagged on something for saying that kind of stuff.
Shoot them with your camera.
Right? Exactly.
All right. Well, I'm going to do that. In fact, I'm going to go shoot houses. So that's all right. Adios.
Bye.